Welcome back to DevMarcon, the first developer marketing summit from the Product Marketing Alliance. I hope you're enjoying the content so far. I want to thank you all for joining us and send out an extra special thank you to all our sponsors, partners and participants who together have made this event possible. Their sessions are bursting with insights to help you level up. But remember, the learning doesn't stop here. If you haven't already, you can become a PMA member and benefit from unlimited access to all today's content, along with a whole host of other exclusive content and tools. Or simply upgrade to an Access All Areas pass to catch up with all session recordings on demand. And remember, have your questions at the ready. Simply post them in the comments section and get awesome advice from our experts. We've got another awesome session lined up for you now, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the talk.
This is Joy Liuzzo. I'm the head of product marketing here at Stack Overflow. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Stack Overflow, we empower the world to develop technology through collective knowledge. Every month we see about 100 million visitors, which makes us a top 50 global website. Today I'm joined by Gina and Steve from Google, and we'll be discussing investing in developers' communities. So Gina, why don't you go ahead and go first and introduce yourself?
Great, thanks so much. Hi everyone, thanks for having us. My name is Gina Jorgensen and I'm a senior director within the Google Cloud Marketing Organization. I focus on what we call our modern core infrastructure, so all things infrastructure modernization, app modernization, and then I run developer sustainability and marketplace for all of Google Cloud.
Great, Steve, why don't you go ahead?
I'm Steve Francia. I'm the product lead for the Go programming language team at Google.
Wonderful. All right, so Gina, you recently launched the Google Cloud community, and in your release, you spoke about investing in the community. So why was investing in your community so important for Google Cloud?
I think that for a few reasons. The community is what makes these services interesting, right? When you see the innovation that comes from our developer community and the innovation that comes from customers and partners, investing in that community, gives us an opportunity to learn from them and see what they're developing, see how we can make our services better, and just get closer insight into what's happening out in the world, out in the community. The real goal for us investing, particularly in Stack Overflow, was we wanted to get closer to that community and be able to have deeper discussions. You can do that, excuse me, today on Stack Overflow in terms of answering questions, but Collective was what actually gave us a closer bonding with that particular community, because it was people who had opted into the community and wanted to have a deeper dialogue with them and learn from them. And so that was our full intention. But I think in terms of any community, it's just important to invest in it if you want it to thrive.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And Steve, you've been at some very well-known organizations, Docker, MongoDB, Drupal. What have you learned about the importance of developing in a community, or investing, excuse me, in a community?
I've learned community is everything. If you don't have a strong and vibrant and welcoming community, you're just you're really, technology can last for a while with that, but it's not going to survive. It's not going to thrive. It's not going to grow. And if you're looking to really grow and make an impact and change the world, which at every one of those orgs, that's what our goal was. Community is the only way to do it. And it's really a symbiotic relationship between the technology and the community. And the technology depends on the community to survive and grow and develop and shape. And obviously, community depends on the technology to accomplish the goals that they have. So it's really this wonderful symbiotic relationship, and it's really impossible to do it without both sides equally invested.
I'm going to go a bit off script because you both mentioned learning from the community and the community learning from each other. When you're thinking about this learning activity, have you found anything else besides community that would allow that you to learn from your developers on a grand scale, or is community kind of the only thing that you have in order to do that?
Steve, if you don't mind, I'll start on that one. I think community is a really interesting word because some people try to associate community with a product or a location or something. It's very fluid. Community is all of those things, right? It's wherever people go to congregate to learn from one another and find people who they can discuss interesting topics and the same interesting topics that are relevant to both of them. And so for us, it's not about, everything that we do is community driven because we think of our users as sort of the center of the universe for us. And so whether that's one-to-one feedback or a multi-forum feedback or a broad public forum, wherever that is, community is generating and gathering to surface new information and to share what they're learning. Sometimes it's their frustrations, sometimes it's things that they're excited about. And so it's all of the things that you get in an everyday life and community, whether that's a personal community or a work-related community. So for me, when I look at community, it's this very big, broad thing that I can put learning under, I can put certifications under, I can put different forums like Stack Overflow and GitHub underneath. And so it's not just one particular monolithic thing, if you will.
Yeah, I was going to say something very similar. We use the word community to really mean a group of people. And so like, I'll speak about Go specifically, that's where I am now. There's a Go community and everyone thinks they're part of the Go community, but everyone's version of that community is different. For some people, it's the Stack Overflow Go community. For others, it's the Reddit Go community. For some, it's my local meetup community. For some, it's this GitHub project that I'm, this project host on GitHub that I'm active in. And it's going to be maybe a combination of several of those things. So everyone has their own kind of different version of what the community is from their own perspective, which is great. That's what community is. It isn't this one thing that's the same for everyone. It's a very unique thing. And, you asked specifically about learning. Since community is the group of users, our group of people working with it, there's no other place to learn. That's the place you learn from users is from our community. That's where learning takes place. So it's really the only place you can do it is from community, but there's a broad definition of what community is.
That's fascinating. Thank you for that. All right, so let's talk specifics and see where we have commonalities or differences between the commercial product, Google Cloud, and then an open source product such as Go, and when it comes to communities. First question, which comes first, promoting the community or seeding and building the community? And then why does that come first? Or does something else come first?
I'll go first on this one. This might be different. I don't know if it's different. I think with open source, right, we built Go 13-ish years ago. And we made a conscious choice to open source it because for languages, if they're not growing in adoption, they just don't survive. And the best way to grow adoption is to open source something and make it publicly available and accessible and let people have access to it. And so that was a very conscious choice for us. Was we built an early version of Go, kind of behind closed doors, just to know that we had something worth sharing. And then immediately we started growing the community. And that was our first goal with it. It was really grow a community, get a group around us to build the libraries, because a language is not just the language that it is, it's all of the ecosystem around it. It's the many libraries that are around it, the users, the tooling, everything. So we know we couldn't do it without a community. So for us, community was really the first thing. Once we had a little thing to build a community around, our community was our first priority. And I think that's definitely true about Go as a language, but it was also true for the other projects, Docker and MongoDB and Drupal that I've been involved with as well.
That's interesting. And I think on the Google Cloud front, what we've seen is community just surfaced as we started releasing the services, daily, weekly, monthly. The community just grew, the number of users grew. And so there was an inherent community that grew as you released the services. What we have found, and I think in terms of promoting the community versus seeding and building the community, we always want to help build a community and whatever it is that they need. But part of that comes from, to your question, is this is sort of a chicken and egg question. Part of it comes from promoting the people who are doing the amazing work within the community and then sharing their gifts and their talents and expertise with others. And so you kind of need to do those in tandem. And I think from a Google Cloud standpoint, where we are really working to be better is build a community where Google Cloud resources, people, technology, everything is universally available to everybody. And, we've heard a lot of great feedback from our developer community that says, hey, love your technology. Gosh, what you guys are doing is incredibly innovative. You guys are amazing in the open source space, and obviously one of the largest contributors in the industry. But where we have sort of fallen short is we've fallen short in the area of really being less academic in our approach and more accessible to our community. And so part of us doing this thing with Collective and Stack Overflow was being more accessible to the community and having our people show up in places and not feeling like it was all online and digital and self-service only, that there's humans behind this that really want to interact with the community. And so there's that component of it too, was bringing, just getting closer. Emotionally is not the right word, but like really talking to our customers through less of a digital lens and more of a personal lens. And so that's a big goal for us on community going forward. And then we'll be doing a lot of investment in promoting our developer community and the individuals within it going forward. That's going to be a big push for us.
And what's interesting about what you're saying is that it goes back to how you're thinking about community as a whole as users and humans as a part of that. And it's not just documentation. It's not just being able to be successful with whatever's available right there. It's actually being able to have that human connection on a scale from that, which again seems to be a little, how to put it this way. We all know it, and we all know that that's what a community means, but it sometimes loses. We sometimes lose that humanity as part of it. Okay, so when you're thinking about the community, who is on your core team and what skill sets do you need on that core team?
I can go first on this one. So that's a good question, and that's a tough question. And it's hard to define a core team, especially with an open source project. Like we could restrict it to just the people employed by Google to work on Go, but I actually think our core team's bigger than that, which would include people like the moderators on Reddit, as well as the collectives folks that are now part of our recognized members, who many of which are not Google employees, but yet they're really a voice in the community and influencer. So I think you say what kind of skills are there. I think for us it's really empathy is got to be the biggest skill that's required, and we're fortunate to have a team that has that. And certain members obviously are stronger than others, but a big part of it is listening, being empathetic to the experiences that others are having, and then reacting to that in a way that seeks to understand. And I think that's a big one. Emotional intelligence is also a really big one. And we're fortunate to have some fantastic people on our team that I've learned a lot from in that regard. Just really know how to have diplomatic, empathetic, and welcoming conversations. And then I think the third skill that's critical is the one of inclusion. I'll speak about Go. We're growing like crazy. About every 12 months or so, we're doubling in size, which means there's more people new to Go than, in the last year, we've added more people than the 12 years before that, which is crazy to think about. And it also means it's just a ton of new people who have that new unfamiliar experience in that community. They don't know where they belong. They're trying to find their path. And, so we really want to make that inclusive experience for them. And obviously a critical part is people, making them feel included. And so that's a big part of it too, is just making, inclusive, welcoming, friendly, is a big part of it.
Steve, I don't think I could have said that any better myself. That was the perfect answer. I think the only thing I would add on top of that, because you really hit on every point that we really look for in terms of characteristics, which I think is different than what people expect. Oh, we're looking for somebody with, big data experience or something from a technology workload or language perspective, right? And it's really none of those things. We're looking for people with empathy and who want to be part of a community to make the community better. That's what makes really vibrant communities the best. And if you think about anything that's ever taken off, it's because the community has helped it take off, right? Any product anywhere, it's always been the community that's helped it take off. And that comes back to the user, right? The core of your users who love, or maybe didn't originally love your technology, and then they helped give you lots of great feedback in a very diplomatic way that helped you make it better. I would say one of the additional things that I love, because as Steve mentioned, as communities double and triple in size year over year, or even faster than that, one of the main things to remember is that community comes with all different personalities, right? Everybody's doesn't come to a community and all of a sudden change personas, right? So you all of a sudden get this amorphous thing where the intention of the community might change because you have different perspectives coming in, right? And so one of the things to really, I think, try to maintain the pureness of in a community is, what does the community stand for, and what are the expectations of conduct that we expect from the community, right? How do we treat people? One of the most intimidating things about coming into a community, any community, anywhere, technical or not, is there's a bunch of experts already there, right? Both inside and outside the community, there's a bunch of experts around. And if you're new, you want to go to a community so you can learn. We've been talking about learning so much. And sometimes if those experts forget that they're teachers and instructors and coaches of these new people coming in, the community takes on a form that we don't necessarily want it to take on. And so one of the biggest things for me is that, what's the intent of the community, and continuing to reiterate this code of conduct almost that we expect from our community. Want to share feedback. Radical candor is incredibly important, but doing so in a way that's diplomatic, empathetic, remembers that we're all trying to make the community better and not trying to show how smart we are. And I think that's a really, really important component of any community being healthy.
So thank you for that. What are the one or two things your community must do in order to continue to be relevant and useful?
I think the one thing our community really needs to do is get an understanding of who's in the community, right? Because we've been so online and self-service from a Google Cloud standpoint, and Steve, the Go community might be very different from this, but as we've done everything digital, self-service, and so you don't, again, get to know who is in your community other than a name state, right? Or a username. And so we really want to make sure we're understanding who our community is as people, what they do inside and outside of Google Cloud, so we can make the community better. And so that's I think the number one thing that we want to do to make sure it remains relevant and feeling like a true community where people know each other and not just know a name on a screen.
Yeah, I think for this, I don't think it's a different open source thing versus commercial. I just think we're in different stages. Like the Go is a more mature community. I think for us, our big goal is to connect the communities. As I mentioned, Stack Overflow has a community of Go users where there's different ones from, the Kubernetes project or the Hugo project, or there's different ones from meetups, or, different ones from Go Bridge, our diversity and inclusion organization within it. So all these have these different micro communities, and we want them to feel connected. It's very easy to feel kind of isolated in one, but we're all part of one big Go community. And, one place you get cross-pollination is in our conferences. And of course, with COVID, that's put a damper on that. But even with that, it's still one for, a very small percentage of Go users or people in our community can actually attend the conferences. And so really it's how we can connect them. And we see collectives as a huge part of that. And that's why we're trying to make it, there already was a Stack Overflow community of Go users, and we knew we wanted them to feel more included and part of the project. And so when we started the idea around collectives with the team at Stack Overflow, it was so clear that this was a chance to unify and combine and make bridges that weren't there before. And I think that's it, is really not to say that they can't have local communities still, but those should feel part of a greater whole. And that's really the goal, to feel relevant and included and evolve.
Perfect. Thank you for that. All right, last question before we dive into collectives a little bit more. If you had a limited budget, which, be frank, all of us have limited budgets, regardless of how large it is, what areas would you absolutely continue to support for your community? What are the things that are absolutely non-negotiables when it comes to your budget?
I think for us, it's twofold. I think first and foremost, great things in the community doesn't require actual budget, right? Being able to give feedback is free. Participating in forums is free. Learning from each other and using forums like this, Google Meets or Zoom meetings or whatever it is, are all free. And so continuing to invest in all of those areas for connection we just do every day, we would want to continue to do that. Where it really comes to, I would say, budget constraint, if you will, I think the second thing for us that we really need to focus hard in on would be in how do we actually curate more interactive online experiences. And you can rely on things like word of mouth to build and grow the community, but to get more reach, you have to go where users are and find them, and use things like search engine optimization and whatnot to really find and grow your community. So I think first and foremost, it would be making sure we're reaching out to the right communities and using whatever Google-led technologies we can to get out there, and just bring the community, more and more of the community that doesn't know Collective exists, or that doesn't know the broad Google Cloud community exists, and offers them an opportunity to join.
For us, I think the answer is with a limited budget, it's really about, if I had to pick one thing, I'd pick diversity and inclusion, because the privileged have easy on-ramp, and that's not the community we want. We don't want a community of all privileged people. We want a community of everyone. And so there's opportunities to give scholarships and sponsorships to the diversity and inclusion groups that really make a profound difference in the shape the community takes. And so if that was the only thing in our budget, I'd be happy with that. I think an extension of that is onboarding or on-ramps and making those clear. But I think that's part of the same group. And, it's something really important to us. And I think that's really where, if I'm honest, that's where we actually put the majority of our budget today. And I think that's where it should be.
That's wonderful. Well, and for me, the diversity and inclusion, that's also where you start expanding out your range and what can be possible, because you're not in that privileged group of everybody who has the same experiences and are trying to solve the same problems. Your bigger problems, different problems and perspectives get to come in and start bringing value and building on the product that way. Wonderful, wonderful. All right, so let's talk a little bit about collectives on Stack Overflow. You were both launch partners for this new product. And for those of us, again, who aren't familiar with collectives on Stack Overflow, these are communities where technology organizations such as Go or Google Cloud can directly engage with developers who use the product, and developers can find resources that'll help them build faster. So as you start to think about the developers being able to collaborate and share knowledge, these really are dedicated to the products, these specific products. So what made you decide that collectives was a good fit for your strategy?
I can go first. Our broad strategy of Go, as we look, languages are really interesting things within technology. And within languages, most of the ones we know of today are 30 to 50 years old. In fact, there's very few languages that are in good use that are less old than that. Go is one among the youngest languages that are in the mainstream conversation of technology. And so as we look at how do you get to that point where, let's say, where Python and Java and C# are today, and for us it's pretty clear. We've done well with early adopters. We were very fortunate that cloud native groups adopted it. Things like Kubernetes and Docker were written in it. And as the next big thing for us is to go to enterprises and to make sure that they can use it for their key workloads. And we've made a lot of strides to do that. Part of that is just maturity and polish. And so over the last 4-ish years, we've the Go project's expanded to really take over the experience or polish that experience. In places the community needed help, we take it over. In other places, we supported the community in doing it. So one example of this is VS Code's a very popular editor. We worked with Microsoft on it, and then actually had them transfer the ownership of the plugin to us because we could give it more attention, bring it under the umbrella of the Go project. And as doing such, it have a better release cadence to all the release with all the features that are going. There's a better pipeline to it, and our users are loving it. We kind of track it through surveys, and our user satisfaction's never been higher on that core product. Now we think of Stack Overflow. That's a critical part of our user experience. Actually, majority of Go users for the last 4 years, 5 years, we've been tracking it, go to Stack Overflow for questions. And so we thought, how can we bring that in? Now we're not going to reproduce Stack Overflow. So that's off the table. So how could we combine our efforts, align with Stack Overflow to create a better experience, more holistic experience for the Go users already there? And interestingly, Go users are often on the Stack Overflow site before they're on any other Go site, right? So a lot of them are starting there. And so the idea behind collectives was an idea to really unify those two things, to give us a place where the Go project could have better alignment with the Stack Overflow one, with on-ramps between both. So our Go websites are sending people to the Stack Overflow Collective. The Stack Overflow Collective is sending people through articles and a variety of other things to different Go properties. So we're just trying to make a more cohesive experience to really unify things and help it grow. And so for us, it was just perfectly in alignment with our strategy and how we're going to polish that experience and really make it as mature and kind of seamless as possible. And we couldn't have done it. Stack Overflow is already part of the experience, so we couldn't do it without Stack Overflow. And the idea of collectives really just brought it together in such a nice fashion.
Yeah, I'd wholeheartedly agree with Steve. I mean, we're in the exact same boat from a Google Cloud standpoint. When we thought about collective and we talked to the team at Stack about it, there's just as Steve mentioned, right, a vast majority of our community is already there. That's where they go first primarily. And so there was already a ton of activity, and there's lots of participation, both from Google employees and our external developer community that were already collaborating. Our hope was to get closer to that community and make sure we were serving them in the best way possible and bringing them the latest information from our technology side as quickly as possible. And how do we get that information in the hands of people in the community that they're already in? And then from that, how do we learn, right? How do we learn their reaction to it, whether they think the direction that we're taking is positive or maybe needs a slight change in course? And so really it was around curating that experience on top of a community that already existed. And so it seemed like a great opportunity for us to just get closer to that community in general.
Very good. So any early learnings so far? It's launched probably about 2 weeks now. Anything that came out that you're like, wow, I didn't expect this, or good, or anything good that you wanted to share?
I can share some early experiences we've had. And again, 2 weeks is early, right? So I think this is more hope. Our hope for this is those bridges, that these people who've invested a ton of time and experience and expertise in Stack Overflow feel like they're more part of the Go project. And similarly, people on the Go team feel like the Stack Overflow community is part of our jurisdiction too, part of places we want to spend more of our time and invest more of our expertise in. We've seen that happen already. We've seen members of the Go team, some very senior members, create accounts for the first time, responding to questions, getting more involved. We're also seeing, and we didn't fully expect this, that some of the Stack Overflow, leaders that are really influencing and answering the most questions with the Go tags, reached out to us, and they wanted to talk. And this was not a complete surprise, but a very welcome thing, and it happened more than we expected. And from us, what we see is what a valuable resource they are. Some of our top ones have answered hundreds and thousands of questions they themselves have the best knowledge of what a new user goes through learning Go, right? Better than anyone else. And what a fantastic wealth of knowledge that is for us as we're working on trying to improve the onboarding experience and really polish it. They know where all the questions are. They know where they're being asked. And so, we'd love them to get more involved, not just on Stack Overflow, but also with our other onboarding things that are happening. And so there's a bit of hope there, but there's a lot of opportunity there, and there's interest from both sides to really kind of unify these groups together. And we're just really optimistic about everything and hopeful that will continue to happen, and that merge and meshing of these different influencer groups.
Yeah, I would say on the Google Cloud side, it's been slightly different. Just in the spirit of transparency, we have had, I think some of the kind of key learnings we have had is, does the community really understand the difference between what Collective is doing and what the existing Stack, and we're working with the Stack Overflow community looks like? And I think that's what we've been working with Stack to help clarify and define. So there, I think, some early confusion in what is this thing and what is Google's intent, both from the Go side and the Google Cloud side. What's Google's intent here? And so I think there's some really interesting learning just around the way we roll out collectives and the way we do V2 from here on out, and just things like, the people who are at the top of the leaderboards, right? They've earned that right to be there, right? They've answered tons of questions and they've provided significant impact on the existing community before Collective even existed. And so things like when you have certain people post or you post an article, it shouldn't necessarily be about reputation points, for instance, right? And just thinking through really what the different intentions look like of the community, because again, we come here going, it's just about how do we build that bridge and get closer to that community and learn from one another. And I think when we're not really super clear early on in what Collective means, I think we need to do that in sort of future iterations of the product, because I do think that'll be important for the community going forward to really get their head around why this versus me just being on Stack, and what's the type of content I'm going to get here that's new and unique and different. How is the experience just going to be new and unique? And I just think those are just sort of growing pains, but all really positive and hopeful about what the community will be able to do and how we'll be able to grow and make that community again feel closer to Google and feel less online and self-service and more human, as we mentioned earlier.
That's wonderful. Well, that is all the questions I have for you both today. Thank you so much for your time. And now we will go ahead and take questions from the audience.